My name's Ryan Merritt, and today's presentation is how we can make design easier, which I think is hopefully something that is beneficial to everyone here today. And then just looking at time-saving tools and creative collaboration. Um, as Jessa mentioned, I've worked with Uplift since the initiation. I worked on their branding and brand identity. Um, my daytime job, I'm actually a Parks and Recreation manager here in Iowa. So I'm not sure who all is that familiar with Iowa, but it's still morning here, but I know it's afternoon time where you guys are, so I'm in Central Time, located just outside of Des Moines, so just basically smack dab in the middle of the state of Iowa. Um, and I've been in graphic design for about 15 plus years. Worked on a lot of branding initiatives and campaigns for large scale, branding overhauls all the way down to, small, graphic design projects and mapping projects. But I really enjoy working with destination marketing organizations, helping kind of, with rebranding or coming up with a brand. That's kind of where my brain lights up quite a bit. And but yeah, I've worked with municipalities, you know, public private sectors, and just really enjoy design and how it can be efficient and effective and work best for everyone. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm also a graduate of East Carolina University, so go Pirates for any ECU alums here. And as I mentioned, I live in Des Moines here with my wife and my two daughters. So that's just a little bit about me. And we'll get into the presentation here. So for the agenda today, we've got just introduction, understanding the roles of a graphic designer, the graphic design process, collaborating effectively, design tools and efficiencies, and also everyone's favorite buzzword AI, so leveraging AI in the design process. So for an introduction, this session is designed for destination marketing professionals and really anyone who wants to strengthen their visual storytelling and to improve collaboration with graphic designers. Um, and so within this, we'll overview the power of good design and effective collaboration. We'll also talk about workflows and how to write a better creative brief or scope of work. We'll talk a little bit more about that. How to give clear feedback, which I think is also something to be learned. I know I've been working at it for a long time, just and that goes both ways between an organization and a graphic designer or a firm. That two-way communication I think is important. And then also we'll obviously explore a host of AI tools and how to jumpstart ideation and coming up with creative concepts and saving you time. I mean, I know that's an important thing for everyone. So um, go on to the next slide here. So just wanted to represent that, good design is within reach. So even though it may feel unattainable or that you need, a skill set that you may not have personally or on your team, it is within reach. Even with limited staff or limited budget, there's still an opportunity to provide great design, and we'll kind of walk you through how to structure that process effectively. So this next section, understanding the role of a graphic designer. So what does a graphic designer do and what don't they do? So a graphic designer isn't just a maker of pretty things, I guess. They're a visual problem solver. I like to come at it as it is a problem or an issue that I'm trying to help figure out. And that I try to interpret, I guess, what the client's goals are into effective communication. I mean, that's ultimately at the end of the day, it's visual communication. So that's, trying to translate what's coming in from the client and then creating something that helps helps improve what they're trying to get across. I think that's the main goal. So, um, and then the differences. So we'll talk briefly about branding, visual identity, um, and then I guess also the differences between freelancer, hiring an agency or potentially working in house. Those are all somewhat industry terms, but just talking through when you might need to use those separate services. And pardon my Parks and Recreation references here, but that is my background. So, and there is some good some design branding I guess concepts that come from the show as well. But for a lot of people, I think when they think branding, it is this, it's just choose a new font. Like that's basically that's it. But I like this definition because it is an art and science, and I think it's important to remember that it's there's more to it. So
Mhm.
in this definition, branding is the art and science of influencing perception about a product, service, or organization. And I would also venture to add destination. I think that would fit in with that as well. Um, and moving on here, so the when we talk about brand or brand identity, I think this is just kind of a refresher introduction briefly, but uh, when a lot of people think about it, I think they do think, fonts, photography, logo, and that's actually like a subset of your overall brand identity. So visual identity encompasses the typography, the different fonts, the photography, the aesthetic that the photos are within, and then your logo, and that actually fits within your brand identity, which is includes your mission, vision, values, any services or products you may offer, your brand name, and then visual identity is actually a part of that as well. So, um, that's kind of the takeaway here is that when we're talking about these things, it's larger than just graphics or logos or fonts. Like there's a larger identity that is important to think about and remember when we're working side by side with graphic designers. So kind of speaking their language a little bit. um, and then I was also going to mention too, so when hiring or thinking about what the scale of the project is, or what the time frame may be, um, it's important to think about with freelancers. So those are someone that you may hire for like a single project, like a one-off. Um, and then for like a larger campaign, you may need more eyes on it. You may need more people, so that might be like an agency for a larger campaign. And then you may have some staff in-house that are have design capabilities, and for ongoing needs, maybe after a larger campaign, in-house staff can kind of help pick up some of the slack and format templates and do that kind of thing. And hopefully, when we continue on through this presentation, providing some resources that staff that you may have or even yourself may be able to utilize existing templates and not having to develop things from scratch. So we'll get into that just in a little bit here. This next section is the graphic design process. So um, I think design works best when it's within a structure. And so this checklist that I'll be showing here will guide you from the first conversation with the graphic designer to the final delivery and help avoid any surprises or delays that could potentially be avoided. I think it's important to start from a good structure. And additionally, too, I think uh, my friends at Uplift are also going to share. I created a couple templates with this checklist that you can utilize as well, that you'll be able to take away with you today. Um, but we'll get into just kind of in my experience the process that I go through, that how I start and work through with different clients. And I think initially, so discovery phase, it's about the goals of the project, the audience, how it fits within their brand, or helping maybe even redevelop their brand potentially. Um, then next, we work into a creative brief or a scope of work. Um, we'll get into that a little bit more in this next section, but those two are somewhat interchangeable, but we'll define those a little bit more closely. But within that, the scope of work is, discussing project scope, timeline, and maybe providing some examples of work, comparable work that you'd like to see. Concept development, that involves, sketches potentially, and mood boards. And for those that don't know what, I guess, a mood board is, just think like Pinterest. It's essentially a collection of images and, maybe design elements that a client would like to see incorporated into the project. So that's something important within the concept development. And then we get into design production. So design production is kind of the build out of the assets or what's being created, the deliverable. Um, and then we work in feedback and revision. So once the design production's kind of started, then it's kind of that, feedback loop. So there's, a lot of back and forth in that section or in that phase, working on revisions, trying to kind of tighten things up a little bit. And then finally, the delivery and implementation, that wraps up with file handoff and just, final brand alignment, making sure everything fits together nicely. So, and additionally, like I mentioned, you'll leave today with a template that has this and in a form of a checklist that you can use for future projects as well. So
Mhm.
effective collaboration, I think that's always something that we strive for. Um, we'll talk in this section about writing a creative brief or scope of work, how to give useful feedback, making sure it's specific, constructive, and maybe providing some visual references. I think that's designers are very often, very visually orientated. So as you can imagine, it's helpful to get that across in a way that, it's basically speaking their language. So um, but yeah, so a clear, well-scoped creative brief, or scope of work is one of the most powerful tools I think that you can provide in the design process. So it defines the expectations of the project. It saves hours of guesswork. It helps eliminate some of the potential delays within a project. Um, and as I mentioned before, so scope of work, that's pretty, industry standard. Um, and creative brief, that's kind of more the design world, but they're sometimes used interchangeably. Basically, so scope of work defines obviously the scope and the schedule overall. And a creative brief, helps creative teams essentially see what they need to know in terms of like visual elements. So, how things should or shouldn't look. And so that's where I was mentioning earlier, like with the mood boards, sometimes those, different design elements or photos are included in a creative brief to help kind of relay, what the client's looking for. So, it's kind of, they can go, they're interchangeable in a way. So, um, as I mentioned before, so once we get into the revision and feedback phase, it's important, I think, to avoid, generalities in terms of, feedback and responses. So, instead of, I don't like it, possibly you could say something more specific and constructive, like uh, the photo doesn't reflect our audience, or this font feels too formal for our event or for our program. So I think that type of specificity helps with um, you know getting to the point and letting the graphic designer know exactly what you're looking for. So I think that's important to remember as well. um, and also, I think something helpful to point out in this section is to set the timelines, for communication at the start of the project. So whether that's a weekly check-in or bi-weekly check-in, I think this helps build trust and accountability right at the get-go. So I think that's something that I've seen be really effective in in the graphic design process. So section 5, design tools and efficiencies. So as I mentioned, trying to help provide, some tools to help with efficiency and to help with saving time and potentially money as well. And there are platforms out there like Canva, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, Adobe Express and Figma. A lot of them have, free or trial versions. For the paid versions, it's a little bit more robust. You have access to things like brand kits, which essentially brings in your, fonts, colors, all of the things that we talked about in the visual identity into the platform, and that way it's available for templates, and it automatically applies to what you're trying to create. Saves a lot of time, and I think it helps with maximizing efficiency. So um, also, just another suggestion too. So using cloud folders, I know not everyone may have access to that, but Google Drive is helpful, and there's others out there too that help manage files and making sure that there's consistent naming. I think I find myself a lot of times, putting final at the end of the file, and it rarely is the final version. So making sure that there's a consistent naming process with files, I think that helps clean things up and organize things so that when they're going back and forth between client and graphic designer, that what's current, what you're supposed to be working on. So um, another piece too, I really like to push this because I know inclusivity and accessibility is very important, especially in the design world. And a lot of these platforms provide, you know, suggestions for color contrasts and, readable fonts, fonts that are made specifically for accessibility. And obviously, with AI too, within some of these platforms, it provides, suggestions for alt text so that individuals that utilize screen readers or other adaptive devices are able to, experience the visual elements in a similar way. So I think that's important as well. As I mentioned, so these are a couple of the tools that are pretty popular, and I work in quite a few of them, and each client has their preference, and I know Canva is a big one, and it's pretty intuitive and user friendly. But yeah, these are just a couple that we work within. So. All right, so the last section here is talking about AI. So I know that's on everyone's minds right now, or it's at least everywhere, everywhere you look. And there are some, um, I think, people within the design world that, maybe aren't as supportive of AI in design. And I can understand that, but I think from a terms of, helping to give a place to start with ideation. It can't replace a designer's eye, at least not yet, but it can help with brainstorming and providing layout ideas and supporting writing tasks. That's very helpful. Um, and yeah, so you use it for ideation, for campaign slogans, visual concepts, color palettes. That's something that is very helpful as well. You can ask it to suggest layouts for brochures or Instagram carousels, even for like wayfinding signage. There's a lot of ways that you can utilize AI to at least give you a place to start. Because even designers like myself, like I sometimes find myself, looking at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, and I just, I'm stuck. I don't know exactly where to, start the process. So, um, and I think, talking about AI to improve, the tone, to generate copy variations, align messaging with your target audience. Those are all things I think within the realm of AI that's feasible. Um, and I guess at this point too, so talk about a couple different AI services. So A lot of people are familiar with ChatGPT. There is a free version that you can use. It's limited in a way that you only get so many prompts, per day. Claude is also a free service. There are some restrictions there as well. You have to sign up for that one. Midjourney and then Canva Studio has an AI as well. Um, and then just wanted to share a couple sample prompts that I came up with that could work within a destination or a marketing organization, and they're variable through with like we talked about like with ideation. So brainstorm 5 campaign concepts, layout planning, describe a clean, easy to read layout for a trifold brochure, visual style. So these are all just ideas for different types of prompts. Um, I guess from here, I want to go into a little bit more like a deeper dive into AI prompts and just kind of sharing just some I wouldn't call them best practices, but I guess making sure that you get the most out of what you're putting into it. So with the prompt, um, a lot of you have probably heard the term garbage in, garbage out. So if you take the time to come up with a detailed, well-written prompt for AI, I think the output or the deliverable is much more robust, and it will be probably more in alignment with what you're looking for. So wanted to go into kind of a quick I guess tangent, and we're gonna go and kind of do this live right now, but um, going to and want to make sure, I guess, are you still able to see the screen here?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. So looking at these different sample prompts, I wanted to find a way, to combine these because like you may use these individually like as a one-off, but wanting to try and kind of like come up with a larger prompt that may be more uh, closely related to something that you experience like in your daily job. It's not like these smaller like one-offs potentially. So um, with that in mind, so kind of combining some of those prompts. This is one that I came up with. It's fairly robust, but we're going to test it on the two different AI models to kind of see what it comes out with. Um, Before I get into this specific prompt, though, I wanted to give so three things that I always try to use when I'm creating a prompt with AI is to have a clear goal. So starting with a clear goal. So what is the output or deliverable meant to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? Um, Secondly, what is the ask? What output is expected in the deliverable? What is the final product? What format is it in? Is it a PDF? Is it a Word document? Those are all things that are important to build out in your prompt. And then thirdly, context. This is something that I think it's maybe overlooked sometimes because you want to get something, you want to put something in quick, and you want something out quick, and that's fine. That works too. But a lot of times, what they're finding with these models is that if you give context, um, thinking about it as if you were to hand this request or this ask off to a colleague or someone else in your field, giving that level of like specificity. It can include your own notes or a memo, reference files, or links to websites. That gives the model much more information to work off, and then it's able to provide a much better output. So those are three things. So just the goal, the ask, the deliverable ask, excuse me, and context. I think those are three things that are important. So I'll go through this prompt briefly here, but so you're the destination marketing organization for a small town in North Carolina with a population of 5,000. So that is fairly specific, but it does help with that alignment. So your community is known for hiking trails, seasonal festivals, family-friendly attractions that draw regional visitors. It's currently fall 2025, so you're inserting a date, and your goal. So here's your goal: is to promote the town as a weekend getaway destination during the autumn season, leveraging its local charm, natural beauty, and upcoming events. And then here is your ask. So your task, you're writing in like the second person imperative. So it's a command. You are, you must. So your task is to create a complete digital and print marketing concept package that promotes the town's fall and early winter offerings to millennial and Gen X travelers within a 2 to 3 hour driving radius. So then these are the what you're trying to, for your output. You want um, campaign concepts. So 5 distinct campaign concepts, visual direction, so font pairings, a color palette, content layouts. You want the layout for a trifold brochure, structure, an Instagram carousel. You also want some messaging and copywriting. So you have this Facebook event that you want to have it rework, and then some headline options for a poster potentially. And then lastly, here's the context. So you have a small team with limited design and copywriting resources, so the deliverables should emphasize simplicity, clarity, and adaptability. Your promotional budget is modest but sufficient for social media ads, basic printing, and light influencer outreach. Previous campaigns leaned heavily on word of mouth and local partnerships, but lacked cohesive branding or storytelling. Use your professional judgment and creativity to unify the assets under a strong seasonal campaign while maintaining flexibility across print and digital platforms. So that one's a little bit wordy, but we'll see. We'll take it here and put it into um, Chat GPT and see kind of what it's able to spit out. So it's going through providing some themes here: trails of gold, cozy corners. So these are some of the campaign concepts. And while this one's thinking, I'll plug it into here as well too, into Claude. Let that one think for a minute. So visual direction, font pairings. So it's pumping out some potential fonts and giving some reasoning on why it chose those. Um, some color palettes, which is helpful. Content layout. So it gives you basically, how to build out a simple brochure. Instagram carousel. So it describes, how to come up with maybe six slides and what to include within the captions. It updates the messaging for the Facebook event, and then it comes up with some poster headlines for fall events as well. So yeah, I mean, I think this is it doesn't maybe fully you know complete the task, but it at least gives you a great place to start. And just wanted to kind of, I guess, introduce the idea of maybe adding a little bit more information into a request and being able to get out a pretty decent result. So this one came up with some concepts, pretty creative color palette, font pairings, content layout. So with this one, I'm gonna take this brochure layout, what it described here, and I'm gonna say, um, let's see if it can design a trifold brochure using the description provided. This might take a minute. Sometimes with the visual renderings, I think it has to think for a while, um, but yeah, that is, kind of some of the, I guess, the thoughts around AI. And it's not a replacement, obviously, but it can be a time saver, or at least, provide some, a place to start. And a lot of times that's, better than anything because, it's that saves time in itself because otherwise you're just kind of, looking and not really being productive and effective. So, um, but yeah, it's it's pumping through a lot of code right now. So it we'll see what it comes up with here for the brochure, but um, we can come back to it too. But yeah, that's all I had in terms of the graphic design presentation. But Jessa, I'll maybe turn it back over to you if you want to open it up for questions or if there's anything else you want me to elaborate on or dig deeper into.